humans have been immersed in thinking for thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. The arising of thought was a necessary stage in the evolution. Of course, it had its wonderful side too, to be able to think and speak, which is connected with thinking, form words and concepts. And yet gradually humans lost through that, became totally entangled in it, and they lost their connectedness with something deeper than thought. They perhaps once had it, a deep connection with life, not the life of form, the formless one life that is the essence of who you are, the one formless life. But that connection humans had in the way that everything natural still has that, but they didn't even know it. It was so natural, they couldn't imagine anything else. They had that deep connectedness in which there's no fear of death, because there's a deep knowing that there is no death, only the form dissolving. The leaf, all the millions of billions of leaves that we see around us now are all dying, and there's such beauty in their death even. And they are not afraid of death, they just die beautifully. So in humans, thought gradually captured their consciousness so that their whole sense of self became entangled in thought. And then gradually thought itself became more dysfunctional. It created a dysfunctional world. So when from the beginning of recorded history, if you read history and are alert, as if you had just come here from another planet and you are reading human history for the first time, you can see that a large part of the human suffering that is history is inflicted on humans by other humans. All the wars and murder and cruelties, continuous warfare, except brief interludes, because they got exhausted for a while. And then the most dysfunctional century, the 20th, 100 million dead, killed by other humans. And this is a continuation, the 21st century. So on that level, the old continues. The caterpillar is still trying to have its way, and it's getting more and more difficult. Similarly, we could compare it to the flowering of plants, this incredible beauty that has arisen on the planet through flowers, consciousness expressing itself through this ethereal form of flowers that humans have always recognized as very special. And all flowers have had a significance where perhaps the first thing in humanity that was not utilitarian, that you couldn't really eat or do anything with it. And yet they valued that beyond anything that they could do with it. Because deep down, in a very, very deep, distantly, they recognized perhaps beauty there for the first time, when the first human discovered beauty. But flowers came much later than plants. There were 100 million or 200 million years of plants before the first flower ever opened. I'm told that was about 230 million years ago the first flower opened on the planet. But many millions of years before that, plants already covered the planet. Now certain plants flowered, others chose not to flower. And perhaps it will be the same with humanity. Perhaps only part of humanity will go through this inner shift, and the other part will say, no, we're okay as we are. But it only requires part of humanity to go through this flowering for the entire energy field of the planet to be transformed. So what humans then are not doing is to continue perfecting the old way. The caterpillar trying to crawl faster and faster. If we use this metaphor for humans, then that would mean humans develop the thinking mind more and more. This is what, of course, they've been trying to do. Let's analyze this, more and more analysis, more and more getting facts and thinking, okay, how can we solve the problems that seem to have a proliferation of problems on the planet. They seem to get more and more, I don't know. And then, okay, let's get together and think and see how we can solve this. And analyze this problem, cut it into bits and pieces. Well, this is what they do at universities. They cut the subject matters into tinier and tinier pieces. 100 or 200 years ago, it was more satisfying still to be engaged in intellectual endeavors, because you had a wide field. Everybody at university had a huge amount of knowledge. Even the scientists had great knowledge of. They knew Latin and Greek and had knowledge of classical culture and everything. And nowadays, they have knowledge of a tiny segment of their speciality. They can't afford to study anything else. So it's not all that interesting anymore. You could study you can write a PhD on the leaves of a tree, the leaf of the oak tree. You can do it's this wonderful phenomenon, of course, the leaf, but to see it in isolation. So everything, the mind cuts it up, and it doesn't solve anything. Any solution that it comes up with creates more problems. Okay, now we'll invent a medicine to combat the side effects of this medicine. And then another one to combat the side effects. So the humanity we've really come to the end of the road as far as one particular line of growth or development is concerned. And now the shift needs to happen, and is happening, to something entirely different, which means thinking will become no longer primary but secondary. You can still think beautifully, but you're no longer trapped in thought. Something arises that is deeper than thought, and that is the butterfly. It's like something suddenly emerging that's so different from what was there before. And some of you have already experienced that in yourself, that shift from there was once this anxious, depressed, or whatever, angry, stressful little me. Something else has come, and there's been an opening and a spaciousness that wasn't there before, or was there but had been obscured continuously. That is the new, and it's from there that you see the old in you, which of course still has its momentum. It has its momentum both on the external level. When you see the news and read the newspapers, then you can see how strong the momentum of the dysfunctional consciousness in humanity still is. And you can see it in yourself occasionally, that the old reactivity, the old reactions, or the waiting for the next thing, the denial of what is, in various ways of running away from the present moment. All these old movements also still periodically come as wave movements. And sometimes even the seeing is lost. Even in those in whom the new is already arising, sometimes they get lost totally in the old, deeply conditioned, collective, personal mind movement. And wake up a few hours later, a few days later, you might even be lost a few weeks. I've heard of people who got lost for a whole year. And then they couldn't stand the suffering anymore. And finally, through the suffering, they got woken up again. It's like being in a nightmare. When it gets so bad that you can't stand it anymore, suddenly you go and realize that you're in a bed, a warm bed. And this is a very significant term, waking up. And of course it has been used for thousands of years in spiritual teachings. Awaken. Because everybody knows what awakens means on one level, because everybody wakes up every morning out of sleep. And you know what that is. So there's dream, sleep and dream. And then they go. So it's used as a kind of metaphor to describe something that is similar to waking up from sleep. But of course it's not that, because in spiritual terms, ordinary human consciousness is a kind of sleep also. To be identified completely with one's conditioned thinking and emotion, that movement, to be totally identified with that is a kind of dream, conditioned. And so most humans are still in it, but many, many more than ever before are now waking up out of that. But to see in yourself, to verify it in yourself that it is a kind of dream to be in that. And it creates a certain reality that corresponds to your conditioning. You interpret through the veil of this dream, through the old interpretations and reactions, you interpret the events and people and situations around you. So everything, it gets incorporated into the dream world. So you see nothing then as it is, because you impose your dream on it. Human beings that come into your life, situations that you are in, you don't see it as it is. You only see your story about it. And then a moment comes when you wake up and you see the possibility of relating, of being and relating without the otherwise compulsive mental interpretations that you have. Sometimes when we speak of allowing this moment to be as it is, which is the essential spiritual practice, people think what we are talking about is like allowing their interpretation of this moment. They cannot distinguish between this moment and the way in which they interpret this moment, how they personalize it. So you could be sitting on a park bench and you may have heard this teaching that says, allow this moment to be as it is. And then you think, okay, I'm a former CEO of that company who lost his position due to evil people around him, and then soon later was left by his wife. His children don't like him. So this man is saying, okay, this moment, what I need to accept is that my life is in ruins. It's come to nothing. Here I sit, penniless, on this bench, 30 years of hard work, nothing to show for it. It's all gone. So what I need to accept now is that my life is a complete mess and totally in ruins. That's the story. So the man is confusing a story with this moment. And he is imposing a story on this moment. That's one story. There are many other possible stories. The reality is always much more simple than the story. The story is this bench, this energy field sitting here, sensing the aliveness in the inner body, the trees, the birds, the clouds, the air, the sound of the leaves in the wind, the aliveness of it all, vibrant, without needing to tell yourself anything. You sense that, you see it. This moment is the simplicity of sitting here on the park bench and watching the aliveness all around. What do you need to interpret? You accept this moment as it is, and then you put your hand in your pocket and you pull out $2. That's what I have here, $2. All right. That you accept that. What else can you do? That's what is. So the story of ruined and all come to nothing, and we're never going to make it anymore. All that mind movement is not part of the simplicity of now. So don't confuse when we speak of accept what is. Don't confuse a story with the simplicity of what is. What is just this, here, sense perceptions, feeling the inner body, and most importantly, something that's usually ignored, to be aware of, it's very hard to use words here, to be aware, and as I speak, there's the possibility that this is now seen, experienced by you here. As you sit here, what is the reality of this moment? You let go of the stories in your head about who you are or what your life is. That's your life situation, not your life. That's past. So and it's all a story. It's the story of me in the head that you tell yourself. I'm not talking, if it's memories are fine, but to identify with memories, then you personalize. It becomes a me. Your memories become a self. What's the reality of this moment? Here, sitting here, there are sense perceptions. Auditory, the humming sound and the voice. Visual sense perceptions of the room. Person sitting up here, other people in the room, the ceiling, the lights, sunlight coming in, flowers up here. And you can feel perhaps your inner body also, the aliveness that is there in your inner energy field.